Welcome everyone, I'm really excited for today's episode. Today I'm joined by Bart Denham, founding attorney at Denham Property and Injury Law Firm. Bart built his practice around a very personal theme that stands out across his website and LinkedIn, working personally and closely with every client. And that's reflected in how he manages everything from property law matters to personal injury cases. I was especially struck by how you emphasize clarity, client education, and taking time to guide people through difficult transitions. That's something not every law firm truly delivers on. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Let's
Now,
dive in.
yes, you've built your firm around personal involvement and client-centered communication. When did that philosophy really start to take shape for you? And what convinced you that a more hands-on approach was worth building a whole practice around?
That's a very good question. I started out wanting to do like in-house work, so that's what I did when I first graduated law school. I was like uh working for a medical device company and just found that really boring and decided to switch over to working at a law firm and doing litigation. And I think it really boils down to just doing a good job for your clients, um, getting good results, and realizing what's at stake, especially when somebody hires a contingency fee lawyer for a property insurance or personal injury matter. The stakes are pretty high. I mean, a lot of times our property clients have their life savings in their home or business, and they're counting on us to, um, you know, deliver for them. And same with personal injury. Somebody could have had a life-changing incident and they're trying to recover from that. So the hands-on client-centric approach really centers around um, getting results for the client, what's at stake, and then just delivering the best customer service and experience that we can.
Amazing.
It sounds like really it's about helping the people, and it's like you mentioned, a lot of times life changing. I would assume that it's more fulfilling than being an in-house counsel. Um, would that be the case? I'm assuming that is. And you mentioned about the transition journey from being in-house counsel to working for law firm to starting your law firm. How has that journey been? Because we talked to a lot of lawyers who either started with the in-house counsel or started working as an associate law firm, and it's quite a journey. A lot of lawyers that they want to be a lawyer and realize they are also entrepreneur. How has that journey been for you?
It has been amazing and life-changing. I honestly was not really enjoying life when I was doing in-house counsel. It was like watching the clock every day, just waiting till 5 o'clock till I could leave. Um, Now it's the opposite. I'm like, I wish there was more hours in a day and I could work longer. So I mean that's a huge difference. And then the in-house work, it's like there's not a goal, or I mean there's a goal, but like there's not a winner and a loser. And we get to see results daily, and we achieve results for our clients. So that competitiveness and uh, just the drive you get trying to be the best you can be is something that really inspires me.
And
And then on the entrepreneur side, just I love being able to build something. I want to be a national law firm in the next few years, and we're only a little over 2 years in, and we're going into our 10th state um, before the end of the year. So I'm really proud of that.
That is amazing. You know, that is truly amazing. You said you're in 10 states now?
Yeah, we're at 9,
No.
uh, but we're going to add Indiana. We are our attorney Chris Bailey, who's one of our best attorneys. He's getting his Indiana license is pending right now. So once we have that, we'll be at 10.
And only in 2 years. That is truly amazing. Yeah. And so another question is you work across both property and personal injury, two areas that both affect and attract clients who are often overwhelmed and unsure of the process. What have you found most surprising about balancing those two tracks operationally, especially as the firm grows?
Hmm. Yeah, they're very, very different for a lot of reasons. So I'm going to preface this by saying we are vast majority property insurance focused. We don't really try to compete with the billboard Morgan and Morgan type lawyers that are signing tons of car accidents and things like that. We you know we have lawyers with personal injury experience. We have those systems built out, but it probably makes up less than a quarter of our practice. I know it makes up less than a quarter of our practice. So another big difference is in the property insurance context. A lot of times you're dealing with first party insurance, which that means it's insurance you purchase for yourself. And that insurance carrier owes you a lot more duties than somebody in a tort context where it's third party insurance, like whoever hurt you's insurance. So that makes it completely different worlds, procedurally and everything. Um, so that's a big part of it. And you know, from when I originally started out and it was just me, I obviously didn't have any processes built out or anything like that. So it really has been kind of a build, build it out as you go along. In May, we switched from Clio to Fileline, and that has been huge for being able to, you know, streamline, map out those processes and have them integrated into our case management system. Um, and it's still a process. That was like 6 months ago, and I would say we're not even halfway there to getting Fileline to like where we want it to be, and the automations and workflows and things like that that really increase the productivity. And on the another big difference on the PI side, there's so many other firms that do personal injury that they basically have like cookie cutter templates, just drop in, everything's good to go. The property side, we don't have that luxury. We're having to build it out ourselves, working with a lot of outside consultants, me putting in a lot of time on night and weekends just to quarterback everything.
Well, that really shows not just the lawyer side of you, but a business owner, entrepreneur side of you. When you mentioned about building the efficient pipeline with Clio and the infrastructure, it really shows the entrepreneur side of you. And you did mention that the property part and the personal injury part really have a little bit different two pipelines. Would you walk us through what a typical pipeline look like for each of them? We can start with personal injury because that sounds a little bit easier. How, the pipeline from client acquisition to, when we talk with lawyers, typically how we think about the life cycle of cases from client acquisition, the initial qualification of whether it's our practice area, the intake, the document collection, the document processing, and looking, different meetings later, and then build a timeline. How does the pipeline work? How does the infrastructure that you built work?
Yeah, on the personal injury side, you know, first off, in intake, it is important to get that client under contract as soon as possible on the first call, if you can. On the property side, we're not necessarily trying to do that every time unless it's just some fantastic case of, large loss or something like that that we want. And that's because, that client has 100 different lawyers that they could call, and they would all gladly take their case if it's, a good PI case. So from there, also an intake when you're dealing with both personal injury and property cases, it's important to have your intake staff trained on empathy and be able to empathize with the client, because they're going through a tough situation. Most people have never had to hire a lawyer before or been in a situation where they
Have
are
to.
battling an insurance claim or trying to recover from some terrible accident. So, in the intake, you also are gathering information about the case, getting documents, teeing it up for it to get pushed over to the actual legal side of the law firm. Once in there, it's going to in both sides, it's going to get queued up for a demand. That's our process. Now, sometimes on the PI side, the client is still treating, so we might need to have them finish their treatment, just monitor them and their treatment for a while before being able to send a demand. And but it's ultimately culminating towards that demand letter, and a demand letter gives an opportunity for the insurance company to resolve the case or the dispute without litigation. Um, I think on the personal injury side of things, it's a lot easier to resolve those without litigation, um, because it's that first party, third party dichotomy. In the first party context for property insurance, the insurance company, if they determine that an amount is owed, they have to pay it without a release. But in a personal injury context, an insurance company is not going to pay, except for in some circumstances for some medical bills, pay for something um, without a signed release. So um, there's definitely a lot more negotiation to be had pre-suit on the litigation side, and that's something that our lawyers do in connection with the client. We're trying to get them as much money as possible and make sure that they're going to be satisfied with the result. And then if we can't get it done, then we're off to the races in litigation.
And it sounds like it's a work in progress, and you as an entrepreneur have already built a very solid foundation, and you're really creative and looking to build upon that as well. And you mentioned a clear goal of expanding to more states. You've already been really fast expanding, but you mentioned about expanding to more states. And as an entrepreneur, would you say that at this stage, as an entrepreneur, for other legal entrepreneurs as well, at your stage, would you say that you're focusing more? Because we've talked with other lawyers, and usually it's either the client acquisition side or the administrative operation efficiency side, or both. What will your stage attention be with your goal of expanding to more states? I would imagine that both will have to catch up with each other, but
Mhm.
I'll let you take away.
Yeah. So right now we are taking our foot off the gas a little bit on the growth stage, because we have we're getting so much work. So we actually stopped our marketing pretty much altogether. We're just doing like we have a couple contracts for TV commercials, or like we're doing a little bit of pay per click just so the campaign doesn't completely die, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But we've had to do that. We've had to raise our fees a little bit, become more selective on the cases we're taking, both in types and value. So we're very much in a expanding our operational capacity right now. And we're doing that in two fronts, hiring and then operational efficiencies. So, hiring is just getting more people in here, getting the right people in the right seat, and then efficiencies, processes, um, automations, utilizing technology where we can, to increase the efficiency. And we're really big on a top-down approach as far as like the attorney is going to be doing the highest level of work. We don't want the attorney doing something that a paralegal could do. We don't want a paralegal doing something that a legal assistant can do. And we don't want a legal assistant doing something that a robot could do.
Mhm. Yeah. And when you think about the systems, we talk with an immigration lawyer as well. Actually, an immigration lawyer who also legal entrepreneur and focused on expansion for a while and expand the team as well. And we asked him the same question: which side are you focusing on right now? He said operational efficiency. And then we asked him what specifically what would be your goal, and he said, I wish everybody that I hired can do 3 times the work without working as hard. And it's basically what you said about efficiency, about top-down approach, about everybody utilizing their time in the most efficient manner. And you mentioned about systems and processes as well. So when you think about systems and processes that allow you to keep growing efficiently and without sacrificing that personal attention, that personal touch that you guys, the culture that you built on. How would you do that to scale without losing that personal touch?
Yeah, that is a really hard thing to do. Um, a lot of it is on the front end, setting the expectations with the client.
Hmm.
Um, you know, we are of the philosophy like, you need it if you want updates on your case, like on some type of periodic basis, you need to let us know that. If not, we're gonna let you know when we settle your case. And we're obviously trying to do that. Well, we're not just gonna let them know we settle. Obviously, we'll talk to them before we settle the case, but you know what I mean. You know, we're gonna try and do that as quickly as possible. So there's that on the front end, and there's some types of systems and automations that you could implement, like for example, like when a demand letter goes out, having a notification go to the client. Um, we're building out right now our client portal in Filevine, which will allow the clients to just log in and check the status of their case, communicate safely and efficiently with the team, and exchange documents, and just talk about their case. And then you know hiring the right people that are going to be cognizant of the need to keep our clients satisfied. One thing I've realized recently is I made a change from hiring based on experience to hiring based on skills and traits. So just trying to find somebody that's culturally and um, the traits that they have are a good fit for the position, and then training them versus trying to find somebody that maybe has the experience but not the traits, or looking for the unicorn out there that has the experience and the traits, which is, I'd say, impossible to do in a niche practice area.
Yeah, it really sounds like the focus right now is to increase the operation efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
As you scale, what parts of your day to day have become the hardest to keep efficient? Whether it's intake, case preparation, document workflows, or client communication, where do you feel the firm could unlock more capacity for those bottlenecks if those bottlenecks were solved?
That's a good question. I've been trying to dig into this with my staff and um, find out where their bottlenecks are, because their bottlenecks are probably not the same as my bottlenecks. Um, one is training people so that way when they're doing a task, naturally just doesn't take them as long. Like for example, I could draft something in 15 minutes that it might take somebody a whole day to do, just because I know where to look in the file and can make assumptions and things like that. So training people, um, retaining retaining staff so that they could get to that level of experience, preventing turnover. Um, Processes are huge. That top down approach I was talking about earlier, like making sure that the attorneys are doing the highest level of work, and on the other side of that, automating what you can. Like an example of that is, um, I'll just refer to it as like our negotiations section on Filevine. This attorney can just press a button to set off a chain of processes to get authority from the client to settle their case. Press another button to, just put in a number on what they want the offer to be, to then send that settlement offer to the opposing counsel in litigation. And then, it tracks offers, counter offers, that bottom line settlement authority. And, once the settlement is finally reached, it's going to, show up as a settlement, and then um, be able to generate the check, distribution statement, the whole settlement packet, based on doc generation, just with a few inputs such as like the amounts and things like that.
Everybody's in the loop and being notified for every stage as well, and everybody especially attorneys will have the control at the key touch points of that pipeline.
Yeah, and it tracks. I mean, that's the most important key performance indicators are centered around that negotiation process. one of the main KPIs we track are the number of demands and offers that our attorneys are getting out. So that tracks that down to like the recipient, the amount, the time it took to get to that offer, the time between offers, the counter offers, total time on desk. Um, the ultimate settlement you're going to get based on the location of the case and then who the defendant is. So a lot of that information gets tracked automatically by having it live in that space rather than like living in an email somewhere where it's not even being recorded.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, a streamlined pipeline with high stake humans like you in the loop to check and trigger different sections of the pipeline and for everything to be organized and tracked correctly. Would that be sort of what you're envisioning?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's ultimately um, being, um, I said quarterbacks a lot, but like it's ultimately being driven by uh, the attorney. His negotiation skills. He's the one deciding when to make an offer and how much to offer, with the approval of our client, of course. We get our client's bottom line authority, and then we negotiate accordingly to give the client as much money as possible. But it's the attorney, and so with some input from the rest of the team, who's negotiating. So
Yeah,
it's an important skill that the attorney is bringing to that
yeah.
process.
It sounds like if we look at, say, like the next 12 to 24 months, I think based on what we talked about, we want, between the client acquisition and operation efficiency, we're focusing on operation efficiency. And within that, I can see three buckets. Number one is really this overarching top to bottom approach to have everybody doing their most valuable work through a streamlined overarching pipeline. Number two is efficient training and retention. And number three is the negotiation process to be properly set and properly tracked. Did I get that part right?
Yeah, yeah. The third one um is was an example I gave of like a kind of a bigger um
Yeah.
goal that we have of
Mm-hmm.
basically optimizing file line as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
There's the negotiation process is by far the most important one out of all the processes, so maybe it does deserve its own category there.
Right.
But yeah, we have a lot of goals on the operational side, and that's been a product of really rapid growth that we've been experiencing and rapid expansion, um, and just trying to stay on the cutting edge of the technology that's available.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that is amazing. Thinking, well, it sounds like you've really hopped from a in-house counsel journey, a journey through so attorney for a law firm, you started the entrepreneur process, and you've, especially with your marketing and background, marketing and business background, you really, both by your knowledge and by your experience, got it. Now, what advice would you give to your fellow legal entrepreneurs, um, prospective legal entrepreneurs, maybe somebody who's an in-house counsel who's trying to get out, or somebody who's a first year associate at a big law, or even prospective lawyers when people are still in law school? What advice would you give them?
Um, if it's something that you want to do or didn't think you might want to do, go for it. You could waste a lot of time uh, sitting at a desk working for somebody else. And it takes some courage to go out and make that leap, but it's worth it at the end of the day. And your job will probably still be there, or another job will be there if it doesn't work out. Um, I was pretty lucky that I kind of stumbled into opening up my own firm. Like just kept outgrowing roles, and at a certain point, it just didn't make sense for me to be sharing my productivity with somebody else. And then one of the things you want to do if you want to scale a business and not have like some type of lifestyle business where you're basically a solo is you want to have an operating system for your business. So the big one that people talk about is the entrepreneurial operating system, EOS, traction. But it doesn't have to be the traction EOS system. You just want to have a system that you use to operate your business, being organized. And then you want to be able to um, have a place where you could look at your data. Um, I'm a part of a group called Fireproof, and they use the terminology of Jumbotron, basically where you could have a dashboard to pull up and look at the metrics of your business. So then you can make data-driven decisions.
That's amazing.
That is absolutely amazing. Now, we stumbled onto something when we were, researching about your business, and I would love to ask about your legal firm and about the adorable logo that we saw, and also the policy tip of the day. I would love to ask. So, could you introduce us to
Where
that?
did that come from?
Yeah,
Actually,
he's sleeping right now, but maybe he'll come say hi. Sir, can you come here? Come here, boy. So this is my 3-year-old standard poodle skirt. Come on up here, buddy.
The
Say
best
hi.
employee, the best lawyer, the best employee of the firm, huh?
Yeah. So, I'm a big dog person, and I like to have fun with the marketing. Um, so it kind of just like naturally became more involved to the point where now he's like one of our logos that we use in a lot of places is him. Like he's in our TV commercials. He was on our billboards when we were doing those.
Yeah.
And we historically have had some pretty good social media content with him, and he's on our website. But we have some really good content lined up around Skirt that we're going to be releasing on our Instagram and Facebook in the near future. So people love dogs, and we also want to be able to use it as an avenue to give back to the community,
Yeah.
like through the Humane Society and things like that.
Yes, we are so excited to see that new content with Skirt.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much for coming on the episode today, and your insights were absolutely valuable and inspiring. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Bart.
Absolutely, it was a pleasure.